International Women's Day presentation, I'll be talking about gender stereotypes and the negative impact of the media. I think it's an important part of our celebration that we recognise the media's scrutiny of individuals and the impact that they can leave. The definition of the word stereotype is a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Frequently, members of society are pigeonholed into set categories based on stereotypes. But what does gender stereotyping look like? As surprising as it may sound, gender stereotypes usually come into place as soon as you're born. Young girls are associated with the colour pink and boys blue. Girls are often compared to porcelain dolls, suggesting that they are fragile and need protecting, whereas the term "he's going to be a heartbreaker" is thrown around when talking about boys. Stereotypes are all around us. It's the idea that women are nurses and men are doctors, women are air hostesses and men are pilots, women are supposed to cook and clean, whereas men are these big money earners. The list is endless. Though this is starting to become a thing of the past as we see more women breaking the mould, subtle uses of language can still suggest otherwise. For example, though we have many great female entrepreneurs and leaders, the phrase chairman is a more recognised and used part of our language than chairperson. Though this may seem insignificant, it subconsciously reinforces negative stereotyping. Throughout the course of history, there has been a definitive line between how men and women are portrayed. We see this all the time in films and television shows, for example in Disney. Cinderella, Snow White and Sleeping Beauty all imply that a woman needs a man to be happy and live a comfortable life, as she is unable to look after herself and needs protecting. This stigma that women need rescuing is planted into the minds of young children, which can make them question themselves and restrict their outlook on later life. Often the words and phrases that are used to describe men and women are stereotypical and reflect outdated views. Here are two adverts which have been dated back to the 1950s. On the left is an advert for a Kenwood chef with the text, "The chef does everything but cook. That's what wives are for." This plays into stereotypes suggesting that home cooking is a woman's job. The advert on the right is for a mini auto with the caption, "Simple enough for a woman to drive," suggesting that women are too simple-minded to drive any car that they please and should settle for an automatic. This advert depicts 4 households, 3 of which include women cleaning, ironing and looking after children. Though you may think this advert was published over 50 years ago and things in today's society must have changed, this advert was in fact published by the government in 2021, showing that sexist and stereotypical views are still present in today's society. It's concerning that women are still pigeonholed to fit a role that has been dictated for them over 50 years ago, and it's clear that no matter how much time passes, there will always be some unable to break this toxic mindset. When considering the impact of the media, you may notice that the success of women is often marginalised and instead focus is placed on the superficial. An article was published by the Daily Mail in 2017 titled "Never Mind Brexit, Who Won Lexit," with the image of the then Prime Minister Theresa May and the Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. These women's actions would have ultimately decided the fate of the United Kingdom, but at the time, the media decided to comment on the length of their legs, not the effectiveness of their policies. In our history of predominantly male prime ministers, it's unheard of that an article would focus on how these men dressed. With this in mind, why is it acceptable that it happens to women? It's clear that the media has little regard for the language they use. Words are extremely powerful and convey a message. Here are just a handful of derogatory articles and headlines that have been allowed to be published. The language used seems to take away from the individual their thoughts, feelings and successes and instead treats women like objects. This level of detail is lacking when newspapers write about the male counterparts. If we were to take one headline and swap the individual, for example, Elizabeth Hurley, 55, puts on a very busty display as she goes topless in a plunging red suit while unwinding at home, to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, 55, puts on a very busty display as he goes topless in a plunging red suit while unwinding at home, it sounds absurd and comical because it's something that we're not used to hearing. It's important we look at individual cases of the negative effect of the media, such as the #Free Britney movement. This was started by fans of Britney Spears with the aim to help free her from her conservatorship, which has lasted for over a decade. Recently, a documentary was released called "Framing Britney Spears." It sparked a lot of interest on how the media treated the pop star in the peak of her fame and how she was ridiculed without regard for her mental and physical well-being. Britney Spears was often villainized throughout her career. An example of this is her relationship with Justin Timberlake. When they split in 2002, Justin Timberlake was made to look like the perfect guy, whereas Spears was thought of as a vile cheat and held to a higher standard than Justin Timberlake, being asked by fans and interviewers if she had cheated on Timberlake. This all slowly led to her downward spiral. In direct comparison to Spears, Timberlake was shown genuine compassion after the heartbreak, with media outlets and interviewers taking his feelings into consideration, whereas Spears received none of this. In an interview with Diane Sawyer, when talking about her split from Timberlake, she asked Spears, "What did you do?" As in, what did you do that resulted in the breakup? Just assuming that it must have solely been her fault. Throughout the entirety of the interview, the levels of questions grew more patronising and intrusive, eventually bringing Britney to tears. Meghan Markle is another figure who has faced scrutiny in the light of the media. When Meghan Markle joined the royal family in 2018, the British tabloids were quick to criticise everything she did. It's mind-boggling to think that the Duchess of Sussex was receiving hate and criticism whilst Queen Elizabeth was praised and labelled as modern for doing the same thing. Markle faced a lot of scrutiny from the British media as a mixed-race American woman. In fact, the day that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex announced that they would be taking a step back from royal duties, there were over 400 racially charged tweets aimed at Meghan Markle, accusing her of ruining the royal family, despite their decision being a joint one. Markle joining the British royal family highlighted the racism in the British tabloids. It's clear all women are criticised by the media, but women from a black and ethnic minority background tend to face a higher level of scrutiny just because of the colour of their skin. A study conducted by Julia Stanley in the 1970s showed that there were over 200 words with negative connotations that were used to describe women, but there were only 20 specifically for men. Undoubtedly, as language progresses, those numbers must have increased. It's dangerous for the media to be able to throw these words around without considering the impact it can have on the lives of women, men, young girls, and young boys. A simple way that you can ensure you don't engage with harmful articles is by choosing your information sources carefully. Newspapers such as The Guardian provide impartial, high-quality, factual reporting. Though it may seem impossible to challenge the structures that have been around for over 100 years, we are in the age where technology can be used to help our voice be heard and hold those around us to a higher standard. But we can take this further. With this year's theme of International Women's Day being #ChooseToChallenge, I choose to challenge examples of gender stereotyping in a day-to-day life and encourage others to do the same.